Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to a new series with Bastien. Let's build Outbound. How you doing today, man?
Fine, fine. So 4 p.m. right now in Paris. So I'm okay
Yes,
right now. Yeah, I'm good. And you, Chris?
I
Morning?
I am doing well. Yep, morning here, 9 a.m. here. Um, Good afternoon to our friends across the pond for sure. And excited, a little bit hesitant, to talk about this topic. Outbound. This is why I love the ability to have these shows, though, because Outbound, so many of the things we talk about are just because it's misunderstood. There's so much misinformation out there. And Outbound, man, I don't know if there's a more polarizing, topic, especially in the HubSpot space where that might be the
Sure.
only place where inbound purists like even exist, right? And we even have
They're
to have
like,
this
what are
conversation,
these guys speaking about outbound? Just get out. It's inbound tool. Yeah.
right?
But guess what? HubSpot himself is doing outbound, so
Yeah,
you need some.
exactly. And that's right. We got sequences, we got all of these, like a really great user experience for an outbound tool set. We definitely want to help people get past this, maybe hesitation of outbound. Um, and let's do it from a foundational level. Like, first of all, you know, I think half the battle is creating common language around all these words and what they mean. So, what is it like? How do you like to define outbound for people in a way that's, objective and doesn't matter? This is not about the tool
Yeah,
set. This is not about the platform.
that's
How do
that's
you like
funny.
to
That's funny
define it?
because I had a discussion with a couple of guys in marketing, how they structure their marketing. So sometimes you have people owning the outbound, or you have people owning one channel, for example. And one discussion, one time, we were like speaking with someone. I was speaking with someone at CMO, and he told me like, yeah, for me, Google Ads or Facebook ads are outbound. And me, I say, no, it's inbound. And we say like, no, it's outbound. And we were like, how do you define outbound and inbound? Because for me, like for 5, 6 years, these were inbound. And when he started to agree and saying like, yeah, guys, you're putting ads in front of people that didn't come to you with a problem. You're going to the awareness, for example, you're more outbound at this time. And me, I said, yeah, but for me, outbound's more like you're disturbing someone. You're trying to do a cold call. You're trying to do a cold email. You have a human automation thing with emails and calls to outreach someone. So I say inbound to me, and tell me, Chris, like I think inbound, it's mainly about creating demand around your product and answering to that demand. So by creating demand, I'd say like content, educate your markets. And for me, outbound is the rest. It's just like you have the market, you know that someone somewhere you have people interested in your product, and you're just going find these guys inside the market. And you're not here. You can, of course, educate and so on, but let's make it real. Like you won't educate someone with a cold email or a cold, cold calling. No one does that. Of course, later when you go through the deal process, when you start to have your discovery call, there you can educate your prospects. But this one works for inbound and outbound. So that's not the place. But for outbound, for me, it's really like you have to find in your market, in your ICPs, who are your targets. I mean, who are interested by your product right now that you didn't catch with the marketing or the inbound strategies. And so here's the outbound. So I readapted my thinking of outbound, and now I think Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads is more outbound than inbound. But it was it took me like 2 years.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And I'm thankful that you're here today because I can bounce these ideas off of you to kind of help me think through like why we have these challenges in the first place of these arguments about what it is or what it isn't. And I think a part of the challenge is like, especially with the word inbound, right? It can mean like at the heart of it, I think inbound versus outbound. If it's apples to apples, you have to define it at an activity level, right?
Mm,
Like, is it going out or is it coming in, right?
sure.
And the challenge is often inbound is talked about as a strategy, right? And as something bigger, right? So first of all, like because there's outbound pieces of every strategy, no matter what, unless you're an e-commerce shop that doesn't do any ads and everybody just
Yeah,
finds you and buys, right? That's the only form of like inbound, like true sales where yeah, so outbound is always involved. Like if you have a sales team, outbound is involved, like period,
sure.
right? There's outbound activities. That's where it's if we can just start at a level of like, is the activity like, did they start the connection or did we start the connection? Did they start the conversation or did we start the conversation?
Yeah, I
Did
see.
they start the relationship or did we start the
We start the
relationship?
relationship.
Right.
Yeah, I totally
So I
agree.
think starting there, because then no matter what happens after that, there's continuation of inbound and outbound things happening. Right. And I think too much, because this is where sequences and these tools that can be labeled, like sequences can be used, you know, for both, in my opinion. All of these tools we have can be used to support both things. And as soon as we start to try and label them, that's where we create these disagreements. Because I could easily say, like, you know, a sales outreach and prospecting, like, is a way to create demand, right? And it's
Yeah,
one of the
sure,
best
sure. At the
ways.
end,
It's
yeah,
one of the best
because
ways to create demand.
yeah, once you have all your market on the phone discussing about one pain, normally people will start to think about that pain. So yeah, of course, it's that's why when I said for demand creation, I was like, you can say also advanced demand creation. So it's always hard. Um,
Yeah. But I think, and that's why hopefully if we can just simplify it like that, and on this, we'll talk about it from an on the show, we'll talk about it from an activity perspective. Like if we're using those words, that's what we're talking about. Um, and hopefully that will help, you know, start to build this foundation. Cause then like there are definitely strategies which are outbound heavy or inbound heavy. And like there's lots of other ways we can go with that. But for me, that's really the only way that we can get any amount of clarity.
yeah,
It's like basics. Like, is it inbound action or is it out? I just did it
outbound action.
differently.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, man.
That's funny because when you every time I'm speaking about outbound and the way I see this is really important, it's when you're doing outbound, I mean, different depend of your level of outbound. Of course, if you're like just a solopreneur, you want to do outbound, you're doing on your network maybe, doing on the list, qualified list you found on the I don't know on a website, listing all your prospects and stuff like that. But when you want to do outbound at scale, you have to get everything from your market inside a database. And now you can start to better understand your markets from a strategic point of view for the execs also. And you can see also because now you can have access to a ton of data inside uh, on the web, such as, for example, for us, who is using HubSpot. Since people place their HubSpot pixel on a website, you can know who is using HubSpot. So you can get everyone using HubSpot inside the database. You can see the growth by country. If you can enrich with LinkedIn company URL, you can see employees. So it does give a lot of value and insights on a strategy perspective that sometimes inbound strategies, what we call inbound strategies like content and so on, you don't really have. For example, like let's say, for example, in inbound strategy, or like, oh, I'm doing Google Ads on these keywords and so on. We're spending, I don't know, 50K per month. I think we can double that leads and spend 100K. And guess what? When you do that, it doesn't double. Your cost is triples, but the number of leads don't double. So you're always trying to find what's your market, what's the audience, and so on. And with outbound, you're like, no, you don't have to access to the database on other providers such as Google Ads, Facebook, and so on, or the web and so on. You really want to draw this database inside your data, numbers inside your database, where you can have like, for example, your target market is 1 million companies, and inside these 1 million companies, how many are 50 plus employees, for example? Oh, 200K. You apply your industries, for example, 100K. Okay, now we know we have 100K companies. Here's our, if we take 10% of the market, you have your average value, for example, average basket for everyone. So you can know how many what turnover you can get. So that's why I like more from the beginning outbound than inbound, because sometimes more like mathematical. You can really have data, the insight, and you can deep dive in it. And for me, if you only do inbound, that's good because I think inbound is great. It's wonderful. Otherwise, I won't do any content. So I'm really into inbound, but I think inbound plus outbound is really something. Of course, if you do only outbound, it's hard. It's hard to get replies. Like when you receive a message from Amazon selling you something and someone you don't know, of course you're looking for the open rate. Of course you will open from Amazon. So I don't like these people like speaking about, yeah, you can double your open rate. We do 80%, we do 10% reply rate. Yeah, sure, but what's your branding too? What your inbound content team are doing too? So everything is not inside the hands of the salespeople. So of course, the salespeople can do better, can have some good salespeople and wrong salespeople, bad salespeople, but they are not alone. They are not doing everything alone. So yeah, that's why I
Yeah.
think we need more outbound, and I'm pretty happy with actually like the sequences. I guess I think I saw that somewhere. It was done in 2016 in HubSpot. They released the
Yeah.
Sales Pro things in
Yep. That's when
2016.
Sales
Yeah,
Hub came out. Yeah.
and they when they created HubSpot, 2010, 2006. I
Like,
remember well.
yeah, I think 5 or 6.
Yeah, because 2006 it was only inbound marketing tool. 2012 they added the CRM thing,
Right.
and 2016 they added sales. And since 2016 they're adding a lot of things to do sales, like having, for example, the ops plan, the ops hub. Okay, it's really if you want to store everything, you want to enrich and so on. So it's really cool for the sales and outbound strategies. And now they acquired like Clearbits, of course, for inbound, but also for outbound with Bridge Intelligence, where you can enrich contacts, companies, and so on. So they know they need outbound. Like for Salesforce were built over outbound.
Right.
When you want to go up market, sometimes you really need outbound. So yeah, I think you start with inbound advice and then you go outbound. Depend
Right.
of the market. If
Yeah.
you're really up market, uh, you might start with outbound.
Right. That's where, like, in the smallest of markets, and maybe you have like 10 major accounts you're looking after,
Sure.
right? Like, unless you get in a room with them to have the conversation, like, nothing else really matters. I'd say now, after that conversation, you need all this stuff that usually gets classified as inbound, right? So either way, it's like, I think they were so hesitant and maybe it was infrastructure, but like the soul of inbound, like really clashed to say like, okay, if we let people, automate sequences like that, we know that there's bad behavior that happens when people can do it
Yeah,
at scale, right? So that was a big deal when they allowed you to, start using sequences and workflows. But I think the main message is that the best strategies include both, right?
sure.
And it should never be about replacement, but always like yes and, because
Like
this is
people
always a
like
part.
to, yeah, people like to say it's white or black. Every time you hear someone, AI will replace. No, man. If everyone do that, it won't replace. That's like just break down to the nature of human. And what I say to someone, like just say, you don't vote for a party. You vote for someone. For everywhere, everyone. When you're very close, you're very close because this sport guy got it. I bought Nike sweatshirts. It's not because the brand. It's because when you look at the players wearing Nikes, that's awesome. And when what values they transfer. So yeah, for me, it's not black and white. You still need to speak with people. Of course, AI can do plenty of things we don't want to do as human, and that's perfect. But if you just do everything with AI and you don't train yourself to use AI plus being different from others and so on, of course, you will be on the average and AI will beat average. So
Yeah.
yeah, sure.
No, it's a good point. And that's why, like, even before these AI tools, like as a as a marketing leader, as a growth leader focused on customer experience, you know, met HubSpot in 2017, met They Ask You Answer, met Story Brand. So all these things that kind of get to the heart of why a sales process is broken. You hear things like we get done with the journey like 60 or 70% before we even want to talk to a salesperson,
Mm,
right? So we start to have these conversations internally that make it feel like anything that marketing is bringing like is trying to replace the salesperson. But what you've already described is like when we say things like recreate the sales process on your website, it's it can only be, in most cases it can only be from an educational perspective, because they still can't buy unless they talk to somebody, right? So if you're a salesperson, when we start to talk about things like cold outbound, warm outbound, like hot, right? Like they might come inbound at some point, right,
sure.
from that sales process. But anybody who doesn't, when you go outbound to them and they have been through any of that, like they know who you are as a company, maybe even your face because they've seen your videos on the website, they've built trust with you already. Those are the best outbound calls ever.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
And why wouldn't you
Sure.
want that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's like where like salespeople thrive when they speak to people. So get rid of everything else. And thanks AI, thanks marketing, thanks everything, tools and so on. And maybe later, yeah, we will do as we did like 100 years ago, having salespeople in a SaaS business, tech business, whatever you want, just going physically meetings with their clients in person. And we were like, wow, that's huge. Why we didn't do that before? But people did that before 100 years ago and
Yeah.
200 and 300 years ago because we need to have this kind of relationship and it's in our DNA. So, yeah, so I think we should just focus on how do you align marketing and sales because sometimes companies have you have marketing for inbound. You have salespeople for outbound. These are your targets. These are your targets. Speak between together, but not too much. Go in this open space and go in this open space, and now drive more leads. Yeah, but guys, they might need to be in the same team, same space, share same values toward the same objective, so you don't argue over a meeting. Hey, this lead coming from inbound. Hey, this lead coming from outbound. Just get your revenue, your cost. You got your CAC, and that's all. And try to decrease it as a team. So I think that's something we need to break between these two teams.
Yeah. No,
I've seen too
you were
too many
on
times.
you were on Hub Heroes recently, and that was a great episode that you had with that group about this alignment problem. And that, I mean, leads for me, like leads is one of the worst, like it has created the worst habits and behavior
Mm.
and just the way that people look at that word and set goals, right? Because where I'm the space where I'm from, like salespeople didn't even prospect, right? Because the marketing team was responsible for the leads. Like, and it gets worse when it's like, okay, it's inbound over here and outbound over here. And when I was in those situations, I'm like, what? Like, why, if you're the salesperson with all the knowledge and you need to build the relationship, why in the world wouldn't you want to be the first one to connect with that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and not, but it doesn't have to be the fresh faced, like they have no idea who the company is. Right. And that's the difference. Like, when you can get to somebody, like, and this is, I mean, I've heard stories like this and it's so gratifying to hear where it's like, yeah, I finally connected with this person and they tell me, like they start apologizing to me that, oh man, yeah, I've been meaning to reach out to you. We really need your help. Like at that point, and that's what we mean by at that point, they're already convinced, right? By
Yeah.
all the other activity. And now you get to just help them by, right?
Yeah. And here you can bring value. Feeling the pain, you can share other pain and so on. But while you're trying to create that, you have 80% of your time where you just go with your with your weapon, your call, your phone, and so on to try people that don't know you. And at the beginning, it's hard, but you need to do that plus content, plus meeting your customers, prospects in person to to have a better knowledge. So you can also do more social selling, so posting on LinkedIn, interacting with prospect people inside the industry. So one day in 6, 7, 8, 9 months, you can get more referrals, more people like what you did, what you had, Chris, like, oh, I already know you and I wanted to move forward with you. But you have to have a strategy, outbound strategy. But
Yeah.
you have to get strategy. And of course, like sometimes sales, really often, but salespeople are doing like a lot of just doing outbound, like cold calling, cold emails, and of course it works because when you looking at things on LinkedIn, outbound is there, na 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 na, na, I'm pissed off. I'm like, guys, it's not dead. Stop it, because I don't know, like you receive calls from someone. I'm sure we get like the tools you bought or things you bought on last 3 months. I'm sure you got call calling, call email or something like that. So you bought from. So I'm sure that's wrong. But I think it's okay to say it changed, not change fundamentally. I think fundamentally it's the same, but it's just to change the way you have to do it with like because you have more tools, you have more things to do. Like for example, you get the we had Clearbit before, but you have Airbnb giving you the guy who went on your website but didn't fill the form, so you can try this approach. You get the buyer intent from HubSpot too. You have more and more content on LinkedIn, and I think LinkedIn has not enough content. You're getting like a lot of impression for content with 7 days you published 7 days ago. So you have a lot of opportunity to build your trust, build things. So yeah, I think outbound should think big, think wider. Inbound should think wider too.
Yeah. No, we make so many assumptions, and that's how I should have brought that other point home in that way, like you described. Like, it doesn't matter how much inbound you do, right? If the person is, which we know, they're busy, their inboxes are exploding, their social media feed moves 100 miles an hour, they forget. Like, they might want to work with you so bad, right? That's where, like, when I was in the habit of like having email sequences and things like that. Like that third email where you're just like, okay, maybe this is the breakup email,
Yeah,
right?
breakup email. Yeah,
And they're like, oh yeah, sorry, I saw your other emails and I just been busy, right?
yeah,
Like that happens. So if you don't hit the outbound button, right,
sure.
that can never happen. And that's where you can get in this mindset of uh you're doing them a service, you're doing them a favor by being in front of them at that moment because they could not make it happen themselves. Now, I would argue in those moments, uh, and it sounds like we'll be able to have some good conversations. I think the cold part of this, right? The cold email, the cold LinkedIn pitch, like the cold call, I think for reasons that AI is representing, that part, if not dead already, is close to like being valuable. Um, so most of this outbound, like that's why inbound and outbound together, usually like when you're doing both successfully, it's very hard to reach them cold, right? Because they've
Hmm?
seen you somewhere,
You've seen.
right? And that's all it takes sometimes. Like there's people that tell me, or I hear other people that I didn't expect to hear from, and they don't have any idea what I do for a living or what I talk about on the show. But just the fact that the like I've heard through other people like, oh yeah, I've been seeing him on LinkedIn more, right?
Yeah,
They don't know any more than that. They haven't read any posts. But that barrier, that first barrier is gone now. Like they know of me,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's like the old saying, like you have to. The more you see something, the more you like. You have to be 25 times in front of your prospect every 30 days, whatever you want. But that's natural. And if you do this kind of content interaction, meeting people, asking for introduction, whatever you want, and you help people, it's building your pipeline by itself. And that's I mean, salespeople should do that. Of
Yeah.
course, you have some people in the small or medium market, they are having like a ton of companies to work on, and these are entry level sales. Normally, it should be like SDRs and so on. And here you can make a difference because you have no fear of rejection. You just do your thing and you trust the process. You trust that in 1 or 2 months you will get your target. But if you want, but the best salespeople I've ever met, they started to do that, and all along the way they started to do less call. They started like to do. They were doing like 50, 60 calls per day, and all along the way they were just accumulating a good pipeline of people they reject to him like 2 months ago, but they kept the company inside their pipeline, so they opening a store, so they go into the store, they meeting someone else inside the team. Maybe they were trying to get a co-founder, but they spoke with the support team, for example, and at the end, he was just getting meeting, like automated meeting. And he was doing like maybe 5 to 10 calls a day, getting referrals, getting introduction, speaking with a lead he had like 6 months ago. He wasn't ready and now he's ready. And all these sales people were the best performer.
Yeah. No, it's magical when we can help people understand. And that's why like just a little bit of strategic, behind the curtain here, it's like if Bastien is having to explain this inbound and outbound strategy and why it's not good or bad. It's just like, if you have to educate at this point when you first talk to somebody, right? That sales process is so much harder when you have to do that on every single call, right? Now that you've done this episode, it's something that you can share. It doesn't replace you having to talk about it on the call, but now it's like, hey, before the call, like check out this, explainer, right? This piece of content that I think helps, right? Or leading with this instead of like, hey, can we get on a call? Right? You've never met me before, and I'm asking for your time, right? And I haven't given you any value yet, right? That's where stuff like this, fits in because, uh, we've already done one episode where we talked about, Hub Lead and that application, and what we're really, at least for me, like why I'm excited to kind of break down this barrier of inbound and outbound is I feel very strongly to the point where I was last week talking about it at a fuels testing like trade show, right?
Okay.
LinkedIn, like the value of LinkedIn, like it is by far the best business development tool platform ever created. And we still have a high majority of people not leveraging it at all.
You got me thinking, you still have people. No, I don't want to send invitation. It will ruin my feed.
Yeah. And that's
Don't
where
care about your feed.
and that's what, and
Just
that's
build your
where,
network.
right. So then when we're trying to help people be successful on LinkedIn and we have to educate them on the value of LinkedIn every time, right? It gets harder and harder. But that's why we're here, right? Like so many things are working against you being able to use this brilliant tool. But if you can't understand that, it should no longer be about is the person there or not. I mean, there's a billion people like with LinkedIn accounts. And 950
Yeah,
million of them, 95% are lurkers, right? So
yeah,
you're never gonna see them, but they will come out just like any human being. Once they see, oh, this thing might be valuable for me, they will show themselves. And it might not be on LinkedIn. At that event I was at, completely different industry, people come up to you, right? They've never
sure.
engaged
Like,
with you ever, and they've seen all your content, right?
sure. Like, we really launched like Hubly 1 year ago, and I started to do some content about on LinkedIn like on March, something like that, June maybe. Because we were trying to outreach people, but people said like, yeah, didn't see your product, don't care, and so blah blah blah. And so we still said like, okay, let's start to do some content. I was doing content a lot, webinars, posting on LinkedIn, YouTube video. At the beginning, I was super afraid. Now I'm like, I don't care if it's not perfect. Let's go. And when we went to the inbound, so 1 year after, we got like so many people. We met together like in person, but I got some people chatting with me, sending me DMs. I sent DMs to people, and I met like 20 to 30 people, um, inbound or outbound, because I sent a DM to someone who I never spoke with. So. Uh, and it was incredible. And if I hadn't have this mindset of building my network on LinkedIn around my ICPs, I couldn't have done that for sure. It's impossible. I mean, I don't know how to do that. If someone
Yeah.
knows, you can send me by DM and I will do your strategy right away. But
Right. Well,
yeah,
I think that's a good way to close because why are we even here? Like kind of the opposite of avoiding inbound versus outbound strategy and trying to define that at the bottom level of the activities themselves, like calls and emails, right? Like the thing that blew me away is when I started this business and became a consultant, and now I'm on this side of the wall, right? I'm in SaaS, I'm representing SaaS, and then I find out that HubSpot themselves The sales team does not even utilize LinkedIn in the ways that we're talking about. But when you get to the heart of it, it's like we classify things like calls and emails as outbound. And if you're in sales, you're supposed to be doing outbound activities. So that's how we measure you. Right. And then when we start to introduce LinkedIn to the organization, it's like, oh, that's social media. Oh, that's the marketing team.
Yeah,
Right.
okay, I
Oh,
see.
that's that
That's the
stuff.
guys doing
Right.
articles and posts and
Yeah.
videos and yeah, I see, I see.
And so when we have to start there, we're so far away from the sales team understanding the value of LinkedIn. And that's where when I was seeing, leaders of organizations look at it that way, but then they feel themselves like the feedback loop. When you're the person with the knowledge and can actually help people and respond to comments, like that is by far the quickest way to the best kinds of sales conversations that you want. And that's where it's, as long as the compensation structures and the activity metrics are all around like not using LinkedIn, that's a big part of, why we're passionate about this education, right? Because we need to break that down. And the
Mm,
fact is this kind of, just like if you're going to a show, I like to think about LinkedIn as a 24/7, 365 trade show basically. And if you're going to the show and you're having these in-person conversations, like, yes, as a salesperson, it's best if you can try to distill what happened, right, and put it into the CRM. But the fact is, you can't measure everything that happens
yeah, sure.
in these conversations. So if we do this online through a platform like LinkedIn, why do we all of a sudden need to measure all the things we're not asking people to measure, right? Because it's the same thing. We're trying to create conversations, we're trying to create relationships. And when you put metrics on top of that and KPIs, now we're 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 incentivized to do things that don't make sense if we're
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
build,
sure.
if we're trying to have conversations with people, right?
Yeah, that's the thing at the end. It's always the same thing. You have to go down the roots of humanity. We're here for having conversation. I was like with the inbound seeing partners, clients, HubSpot guys, and so on. When I get back to France, I was like, oh, I'm super pumped. I want to work day and night. I want to build a better product. I want to do that. Why? Just because I saw people in person, and that's all. So, and we all know that these guys from sales team are speaking with that language, seeing people, meeting people, interested inside, interested to know other people. So yeah, I think outbound can be that way too. How can you like better know people in your industry from your sales team or employees perspective? They know your brand, but they know also people inside this brand. I know this guy, he's the head of BDR, I know the BDR, I know the account executive, and you know that he can help you. And of course, he's trying to sell you something, but if you can have this point of view, or you are the one who is really helping, I think at the end you will win. Like
Yeah.
I've done some demo calls where I just show a lead and someone like show me her CRM and I say, no, you have to put that report like that and this one, no, you use the life cycle stage wrongly. And she said, wow, thanks for 10 minutes. And I say, yeah, don't worry. Like, I don't care if you would pay my product. I know that you like our conversation. So maybe you will speak with someone else. And I learn a lot because I showed you something, you showed me other things. So yeah, but I think that's the difference between the top 1% and the 99% in sales, because you
Yeah.
deeply care about your customers and what you're saying.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful thing. Because even in that scenario, like, that if she's not using the CRM properly, and then she buys your tool, right?
Uh,
It's
what
like,
what will
okay, the
happen in two
tool's
months?
fault, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what will happen
So
in two
man,
months? In 2 months, maybe she will leave HubSpot. So since we do only HubSpot, she will leave us.
Yeah,
I don't want churn. I want happy
right.
clients.
Exactly. Well, this is awesome, man. Really appreciate you, sharing this knowledge, being able to have these conversations. So important. Outbound is not a bad thing. Okay. You've convinced me, man. It's important. And, sometimes we just have to think through this a little bit, which is great because when you are dealing with smart people, successful individuals, like it's not that sales doesn't want to use tools. It's just they've built proven processes that
Mhm.
work for them. Right. And until you can kind of connect these dots of why you want to change and why these tools are good and why they're helpful for you, right? Why inbound is okay, why outbound is okay, right? I'm happy that we could have these conversations and I hope we can keep doing this.
Sure.
Uh, it's been great. And while you guys out there like watching this, listening, think about your processes. I'm sure there's a bunch of stuff that actually is outbound that you don't realize it is because you've been told whatever that activity is,
Yeah.
it does not count. But think about your processes. Think about like when is our team proactively doing some kind of outreach? Where are those opportunities? And let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Have a great day.